Welcome to America by Design Architecture. This exciting series highlights some of the most creative, groundbreaking architecture in America. Our diverse group of design industry leaders has gathered at Bernhardt Design New York City showroom to judge some of America's best architectural projects and decide which one will go through to the final. But only one can be crowned this season's winning design.
You get a group of people, super smart together, passionate about what they do and what they're interested in, and get them talking. It's got to be good, right?
There's a lot of dialogue that goes on. One person says something, then another person goes along with that, and someone else says, but I disagree.
Some of them even changed their scoring during the period, which I thought was fascinating.
The discussion is based on ideals, on principles, on ethics, also how we all humans experience architecture. So really good discussion.
We begin in Bethesda, Maryland with a look at the Elm.
The Elm is a great take on how you can bring housing and business spaces together, and doing it in a way where it overlaps with the infrastructure for commuting.
When you mix retail and you mix residence and you mix commercial, that's when you get the beginning of a community.
Anytime that you mix functions in a building, that is a great opportunity to engage people at different levels and bring people in that might not normally come into a building like that.
Here in the heart of Bethesda, Maryland, a stone's throw from downtown Washington, D.C., lies the confluence of two major avenues, a critical transit hub, and a mixed-use project that combines all the hallmarks of modern workplace and urban living. Robert, what an impressive project. It is such a monumental scale. Tell us, how did this happen?
So we were very fortunate to have the challenge of designing this building. Bethesda is one of the most prominent, if not the most prominent, suburban location in metropolitan Washington.
Interesting. So we're on top of a whole subway station.
This is probably the richest infrastructure site in the region. One is the Red Line, which runs up and down Wisconsin Avenue. And in addition to that, transversely, there's the light rail Purple Line in our basement as well. And so the Purple Line and the Red Line are both located on this site.
Tell us, what was your strategy in the massing and the placement of buildings?
So the site was of such a scale and of such allowable density that we knew we couldn't do just one use on the site. So we had to do more than just office or just residential. So we combined those two uses.
And the shifting boxes of the office building?
Because we had additional height, we're able to manipulate the volume in ways that we would never be able to do in Washington, D.C. because of the strict limitations of height and density.
And what a welcoming lobby to come to work every day.
It is unusual. Our brief from the ownership was to develop a design that was an anti-lobby. So no polished marble, no shiny steel, to do something much more welcoming and organic.
And that's how you came up with this material palette here.
That's right. We embraced biophilic design principles, which refer to using all natural materials. So the wood feature wall is very interesting. We were able to source all of the wood for the feature wall from local mill workers as waste product that was repurposed for our interesting tiled wall. The amenity space, gymnasium and workout space is up on the second floor, and these other levels overlook the space and can be used by office workers if they want to have a local conference or a phone call down in the lobby and work here.
I like that.
Yes.
Leather stair tread.
Yeah, so we use the leather as part of our biophilic design natural material palette, and it'll wear eventually to a soft patinaed look.
So a really wonderful and unusual space up here at the top of the office building for an amenity.
Oh, we were very fortunate to be able to provide this shared common amenity space for the office workers on the top of the building overlooking the views.
I see, and your same strategy of the anti-lobby finishes plays out here.
That's right. Natural materials, again, clays and natural woods. We found a large format clay porcelain tile by Porcelanosa that worked perfectly as a durable floor finish, and then all of this connects to the outdoor room.
Same idea again about the inside-outside, and wow, what a vista out here.
So this terrace culminates the individual terraces on the floors below in a shared large garden, essentially on the top of all of those lower floors.
The lower floor offices have a similar view as this, right?
They do. The tenants' terraces vary in sizes, but they link every few floors to the tenant spaces.
I see. And what about, I hear there are atria down there?
Yeah, there are dramatic 3 to 4 story atria that connect all the levels of a company together, so they integrate the firm culturally, and they link to the terraces.
Wow, if this was my workplace, I would come here and hang out all day. So we just came from that office terrace, but on this terrace, it's got a very different feel. It's more enclosed.
It is more of a courtyard experience up here. We're on roughly the 17th floor. We positioned this outdoor terrace on top of one of the lower residential wings and just above, as you can see, the neighboring buildings to provide views and vistas. So as opposed to the office terrace, which is a little more wide open for large events, this is more about intimacy. So residents can come up and have a dinner, bring guests over and have an event, or use the cabana.
Yeah, these are great amenities for all the residents here, and their apartments have really high-end custom finishes and fantastic views. What's so striking here, though, is that you can see the entire ensemble, and including this very dramatic bridge moment.
That bridge contains most of the amenities for the residents on that floor and adjacent to the bridge.
I see, and I assume there's more common space up there.
It's adjoining a large outdoor pool terrace, and inside the bridge there's a kitchen, a dining area, and a lot of residents use it for working during the day. It's a very popular spot.
So Robert, I can tell we're on the bridge not only from these two glass exposures and views, but from these very large structural members in here.
These steel trusses, Thomas, allow the floor to connect between the two buildings, which are about 50 feet apart, allowing the two towers to function as one.
Interesting, and they also help to establish some spatial zones.
That's right. They divide the floor in half, and then in addition to that, complementing that division is a secondary layering of green planters to break the space up into more intimate areas.
I like the section here. There's multiple levels here, and I see there's a terrace that's connected here too.
It does. The pool terrace is to our west, directly outside of the bridge, off of the elevator core. And then to our east is an elevated urban dog park.
From dog park to pool, you know, this whole space really speaks, I think, to the ethos of this project.
We feel that hopefully this project embodies the challenges and realizes the challenges that we face as architects and planners going forward, making sure that our city centers and urban centers stay vital, particularly around our infrastructure investments that we've made over time.
Sure, it not only makes them more thriving, but it is really playing to a sustainable future.
Completely agree.
Well done here.
Thank you, Thomas.
Stay with us as we continue our search for America's best architectural designs. Welcome back to America by Design and our look at the big ideas behind American architecture.
What we saw today represents the full breadth of what design is involved with.
From manufacturing spaces to condos to residential to airport design. So there was a nice breadth and depth to the projects that we explored.
I think it gave a lot of dialogue between the judges on the different angles and the different approaches we're seeing in American architecture today.
Stay with us to find out which projects from this episode will make it through to the top 10 final for a chance to be crowned this season's winner.
You know what was interesting about the Harbor Hideaway project was how the design team was quite clever about a constrained site.
Even though it's a tiny project, the use of the plot, using the rooftop, and the cladding is beautiful. It's an amazing little piece of jewelry in Sag Harbor.
One of the most exciting things about design is challenging norms and rethinking experiences. Sometimes you need to turn things upside down. That's exactly what the architects did at the Up Studio here at Harbor Hideaway. Hey John, why did you call it Harbor Hideaway?
Yeah, you know, the client came to us with, they wanted privacy at street. So we came up with a solution of removing all the doors and windows, which gives us a really nice backdrop for this Carl Fisher grass to play off of.
Great, and then is this that Japanese siding?
It's actually our interpretation of it. We took natural redwood siding and we stained it twice in a factory and just applied it directly to the facade.
Oh, cool. And tell me about this detail up at the top that looks performative.
Yeah, so this is a shade ribbon. We're really interested in this idea about sustainability in our architecture. So here we're using a shade ribbon as a way to block that summer sun directly coming into the bedrooms. And then we wrap it into a carport, which then ties into this exterior trellis and then registers back into the architecture.
Oh, I see. What is a small detail outside ends up becoming a pretty major feature inside the house.
Yeah, that's one of our goals, is to take the proportion of that exterior trellis and bring it into the architecture. We think that's a really, really important detail for sure.
And this is great. I love that you expose the columns, and it really creates these thresholds into the living room in an otherwise open space.
Yeah, we love the idea that the architecture is here, let's just expose it and let it really show what it's doing.
Yeah, and all of this storage, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, so this is an additional 42 linear feet of storage. Once we remove those doors and windows, it really allowed us that workhorse.
And you don't miss the doors and windows because you have these really beautiful floor-to-ceiling expansive windows here.
Yeah, so this was done by Marvin. It's their custom package, and it really, really brings out that outside energy into the inside for the family.
I love the pool location, but from experience, I know that there has to be a reason.
Yeah, on any compact site, we all know that there's really tricky zoning. This is actually the only spot legally that we could put the pool on the entire property.
That's a happy accident.
It is, and it started our project, and we love how it integrates back into the architecture.
You know, I have to say, so far the house feels much larger than 2,800 square feet.
Thank you. I think 4 bedrooms, 5.5 baths. Sometimes, how do we fit that all together? But I think the floor-to-ceiling glazing really makes it feel a lot more open.
You know, smaller projects are some of my favorite to work on because you really have to be creative, and you've done that here.
Thank you so much. I think, to your point, these small footprints, every inch counts. The team is really integral in making sure that every aspect of the project came together.
Well, they've made it look effortless.
Thank you so much.
Wow, this view is spectacular.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we love giving this back to our families and have them occupy the roofs.
It seems like there's a very intentional hard line between the turf and the decking. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, typically when we occupy a roof, half of it is for entertainment and then half of it is for solar. We're going to wait about a year to check the energy consumption, and then we'll hopefully convert that over.
That's such a good use of space. I can't believe the neighbors aren't doing this too.
Krista, we talk about this all the time. We want families to occupy these roofs. It's the most sustainable thing, but also it's just giving these views back to the families.
Well, I really noticed that throughout the entire project, you've really kind of controlled all the views to really script the narrative of how this house is supposed to live. And this is just capped with a surprise.
Yeah, thank you so much. We love this.
What I really liked about the School of Art Institute of Chicago was that they prioritized function, and they did the best that they could to do a renovation that's going to add 40 years of life to their building.
It's a really good example of adaptive reuse, which is by definition sustainable and green, but also a really interesting architectural move. They took this stair all the way through, and one of the things that we always talk about is why make a sign help you find your way when the architecture can.
Sustainability is the key mission today across many areas of design, and at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, that is no exception. Wow, it's really great to be here. As a former art school student myself, this really gets my creative juices flowing.
Well, welcome to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. We were founded in 1866, 13 years before the museum. In fact, the land that we're sitting on right now, we'd be in the middle of the lake. The school itself has expanded slowly over time, and in 1976, we built this building here.
Well, what an important piece of Chicago architecture in one of the most important architectural cities.
Chicago is an architect city indeed. This is a wonderful example of brutalist architecture.
Yeah, I'm seeing triangles and angles shooting out everywhere. It's really dynamic.
On first appearance, it can be pretty daunting, but it's built on this idea of field theory where you have these intersecting 45-degree angles that help kind of develop the floor plate and organize the building.
I've heard you've done some modernization to this structure, including some aspects of sustainability.
We truly have. When the building hit its 40-year mark, the school was committed to preserving this building, but it needed some help. We replaced the glazing, the roof systems, and we made a significant amount of improvements inside to the interior design of the building. But on the mechanical front, we were able to replace over 80 exhaust fans, the base mechanical system for the building. We saved 40% in our energy cost.
40%, that's a huge accomplishment.
It was a significant accomplishment to our budget too.
So Jim, you were brought in to modernize this classic piece of Chicago architecture. What were some of your challenges?
Well, we were asked to take this 40-year-old building and extend its life additional 40 years or more. And that's a huge project. It involves the whole building. Huge mechanical changes, replacing everything basically, with an eye towards sustainability. And then we also honored the legacy of Walter Netsch, where he used his field theory to design this building.
Field theory, can you explain that a little bit? Because that sounds kind of out there.
Field theory basically grew out of the late 50s, early 60s. Architects used a grid, usually rectilinear, to help them organize space and make design decisions. Well, Walter took it a step further. He took the grid, he rotated it, overlaid the two, and that created the 45-degree angles and the sort of visual excitement that you see in that main stair.
Hey, Tom was saying before how this is kind of a brutalist building, Jim. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, brutalism was a style that was popular at the time this building was being designed. And in its most rigorous form, it's very rugged, board form concrete, rough edges, not real inviting. I kind of look at this as soft brutalism, and I think it gets its brutalist reputation from the lack of windows, but that's a response to program as much. There are painting studios on the back side of those blank walls, and they would suffer from the direct east light.
Oh, I see. So brutalism is kind of a response to the ornate detail of really older architecture. It's more of a form-following function approach. So hence field theory, where you're starting to introduce angles.
Right. Part of the creativity of Walter and his field theory were those angles, and that created the main stair, but it also gave us clues on how to detail things. In honoring his legacy, we tried to pick up clues from that field theory approach. I think, the synergy of that creativity was really important.
So Tom, tell me about this new location for the school right here in the center of Chicago.
This is an amazing street, Washington Street. It ends at Millennium Park, which is a huge redevelopment for the city with all kinds of great public sculpture. We wanted something that had a big public presence that would really announce the school and let it know that we've been here for 150 plus years. So we were able to create this redevelopment project with the architects and really redevelop what is 65,000 square feet of space. It's below ground.
Hey Kevin, that was really inspiring being in a subterranean art gallery space. I found that to be really unique.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, it was really part of the building's overall vision to give the school its own identity within the building.
Yeah, and a space that might be completely inappropriate for most businesses, and yet it's perfect for the needs of these art students.
That's absolutely right. What typically people shy away from, no access to natural light or views, works perfectly for an art school because you're inwardly focused on your creativity and what you're doing on hand.
Yeah, and even though we were 5 floors below street level, I felt like the space was really integrated, and I think that was probably the result of that incredible staircase that ran through everything and tied everything together.
That's exactly right. We use that staircase as a core element to the design. It created a connection from the streetscape all the way down this lower level floor area, where they used to even have the old rail car systems to be cold into the building. We made some revisions down here and revamped the space, preserved as much as we could in the process, but also created a state-of-the-art ventilation system for the school as well.
So we have functionality and sustainability, and it's all great for the environment.
Absolutely.
The arts have proven critical for any society to thrive, and the expansions happening here at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago are making that happen brilliantly.
This season, we're proud to include 4 affiliate awards. The Air, Light, and View Award, sponsored by Marvin, celebrates the best use of windows to elevate design and promote well-being. The Interior Design Award, sponsored by Porcelanosa, honors one interior space that stands above the rest. The Reimagine Award, sponsored by School of the Art Institute of Chicago, is presented to a project with exemplary vision and imagination. And the Sustainability Award, sponsored by Green Building Initiative, will be awarded to one project that highlights exceptional sustainable practices. Winners will be announced in the final episode. Welcome back to America by Design and our search for the #1 architectural design of the season. Before we reveal which projects from this episode are moving forward to the finals, let's take a moment to turn our spotlight on architect Thomas Wong.
One of New York's most prolific architects is Thomas Wong from Ennead. Ennead have an office in Shanghai and also one here in New York in the One World Tower. Thomas is of course one of our ByDesign judges on this show, but today we're turning our focus on Thomas himself. Thomas.
Welcome to Ennead, Mike.
Thank you. Now Ennead, curious name.
Yes, it's a Greek-rooted word that means a group of 9, just like monad, dyad, triad.
Okay, got it. So I'm going to guess now that you're one of the 9 partners here?
I am, and we like it that way as a group because it's a really robust creative culture. That diversity of voices, all those opinions, that's a very stimulating experience and an environment for a creative like me.
Oh, I bet. But are you all just grabbing at projects here and there in different tangents, or is there something that underpins you?
Well, there's some of that, but what really binds us all is that we have a foundational ethos. And that was really shaped by a man named Jim Polshek, who was the founder of the firm.
Oh, who recently passed away.
That's right, at age 92 this past September. But the foundation of our firm is that we really believe that buildings and design are not just about how it looks, they can create positive change. They create a social fabric.
You're right, to serve the people, not the other way around.
That's right, and at its best, it can make people work better. I also believe that you understand a place through its built environment. If you look at a city like New York, we understand New York through its buildings. That's one of the primary vehicles that makes a place, right? The Empire State Building, Chrysler Building, those are memorable pieces.
Because you don't just throw a building up at a whim, do you?
No way, it takes real intent, and that's why I think that a building is a representation of a value. All that out there is what we humans value. So architecture at its core is a record of humanity.
Okay, Thomas, so you do a lot of different kind of work, but is there a certain type of project you like working on?
Well, that's true. I've done hospitals and academic buildings, but the type of building that I think has the most impact in terms of what we value is the civic building. It's like the cathedrals of yesteryear.
So unlike a private residence where it's all about the taste of the client, with a civic building, we're really talking about the voice of the people.
Exactly. Here's a project in the early exploration phase, an astronomy museum in Shanghai. And what we really were shooting for is something to capture the subject matter. It's the universe. That's powerful stuff. We didn't want to only make it about form, though, and shape, so we wanted to shape the sun like these ancient buildings.
Okay, not a new idea.
It's not. It's an ancient idea, but we also did it in a very modern way. So here's how it works. There's an entry plaza that you approach the museum with, and in that entry plaza is a cantilever. There's a hole in that cantilever such that the sun, as it passes through the day, creates something down here on the plaza.
So it's kind of like a moving timepiece.
It's a sundial, and that sundial references something that we all know, the quintessential town square with its timepiece in the middle.
So the clock tower.
It's not just about a building or a design, it's meant to inspire people about this grand thing, the universe.
So another civic project closer to home with a lineage to the Shanghai experience.
Yes, we're at the Rose Center for Earth and Space here at the American Museum of Natural History. And this is a project that was designed by 2 of my partners, Todd Schliemann and Jim Polshek, 20 years ago.
And what am I looking at here?
You're seeing the planetarium sphere. This sphere holds an important part of the project program, which is a planetarium theater.
And from the outside, it represents the sun.
On this walk here is what is called the Scales of the Universe exhibit. And one of the things that's pointed out is that we can use the architecture here to help tell the story.
Oh, I see. That's Jupiter, the biggest planet in our solar system. And look at it in comparison to the size of the sun.
It's huge. Most people don't realize that.
And what about the spiral ramp?
Spiral ramp is bringing you out of the theater and to the rest of the exhibit. But we also tell a story there about the history and timeline of our universe. At the very end is a human hair, and that represents the time that humans have existed.
So I understand the original brief was to renovate the Hayden Planetarium, a well-loved landmark building. How did you end up here?
It was the mid-90s when we were designing this thing, and the board asked us, what would you do if there were no constraints?
How often do you get a brief like that?
Almost never.
I really miss the 90s.
Don't we all? So this is what we created. We started over and turned this building inside out. We said, let's make it glass. Totally open, transparent, related to the civic realm out there. So you can see from the sidewalk and street that all-important sphere.
And it's iconic.
People understand it as part of New York. When you come to the city, you see the Empire State Building, One World Trade Center, Carnegie Hall.
And the Rose Center.
Exactly. Mike, I want to show you another project, but unlike the other two, this one's about the Earth and its natural landscape.
The natural landscape of Utah.
Yes, Utah. It's an incredibly powerful place. You're going to recognize some of these forms in a minute. We went around the state and viewed some of the incredible geological forms out there that tell the story of our planet.
I see, and this is the inspiration you drew for creating this, the Natural History Museum of Utah.
So here we have arrived in the heart of the museum in what we call the canyon, Mike.
And that's exactly what it is. What a great name. It's a canyon.
Indeed, the design concept's inspired by some of the natural landforms of Utah, the slot canyons that were formed by water runoff over thousands and thousands of years.
And I understand to create this canyon, you literally cut into the mountainside.
We did. In fact, since we're on a slope here, the ground goes up to the 4th floor, and that concrete wall holds about 4 stories of earth back. Now, the other thing is this bridge, which is a reference for some of the natural land bridges that occur in Utah, like those in Arches National Park.
I recognize that. So there's the canyon, and then there's this.
Right. Even though this designed space and abstraction of nature is beautiful, we wanted to refer people back to the natural landscape. The Oquirrh Mountains beyond, the Great Salt Valley, it's really a breathtaking view.
Thomas, you clearly love this kind of work.
I do, Mike. While design of residential is really important for the families that live there, this is an open public building, so it has great reach. I think civic buildings represent what we value as humans, whether that be the universe above, as we saw in the other 2 projects, or the natural landscape.
This is a marvelous example of design inspired by the power and beauty of the natural world. It's taken 30 years for Thomas Wong to achieve his global body of work, and he's done that at an earlier stage in his career than many. There's a long runway ahead for Thomas, and I look forward to seeing what's next.
Why let the judges have all the fun? Cast your vote in Lumion People's Choice Award to pick your favorite architectural project. One entry will be chosen to win Lumion's flagship 3D visualization software, Lumion Pro, along with a sleek, high-end laptop from MSI Creator Z series. For details and to vote, just scan the QR code on the screen or go to ByDesign.global. It's time to find out which architectural projects from this episode will go through to the best of the best season final.
What I would say is very impressive about this project is the fact that it is a very transit-rich location with transportation underneath the building. So this is the prime location where density in cities needs to be increased over time. So I have a great respect for what the design and development teams have done in Bethesda to bring sensible density to a transit-rich location.
I was so impressed with the Harbor Hideaway, both of the shade ribbon detail from the exterior and the detail they brought into the interior.
One of my favorite spots was the roof area. Normally roofs are just used as protective. And so to also have the area that can be used in the future for solar shading, it really showcases the sustainability feature in the home. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of this project.
Congratulations to those deserving projects. We wish them luck in the final. Join us next time for more amazing architectural designs on America by Design. For more information on any of the projects featured or to enter your vote in the Lumion People's Choice Award, simply go to bydesign.global.